Welcome, everybody. This is Julian from Straight from a Scientist. Today, to honor our recent collaboration with the TheSciCommunity, Connor and I sit down with founders Dan and Gabe. Dan and Gabe share their pathways into science, and we also speak a lot about how to improve the dialogue between scientists and the public. And finally, we answer a very important question: is scicomm enough? I apologize for some of the audio issues during this recording, and it was tough to record four people from four different corners of the globe, but it sounds pretty good, so apologize for any audio issues that you notice. Other than that, without further ado, please enjoy the episode. Welcome, everybody. This is Julian and Connor. We are here with a very special episode. We have the guests of the Science Community, and this is Dan and Gabe. So introduce yourself, Dan and Gabe. How are we doing today?
Hey, I'm Dan, handle on Instagram, Dan the Biology Man. I'm doing great today. And before anything else, I just wanted to mention that Michelle is very sorry that she couldn't make it here today. Silly scientist. She is in class right now, but
Oh, no.
she's a gigantic part of our whole sci community. And I would be remiss not to mention her right now. She does so much work for us, doing a great job, but
Yeah.
stuck in class right now, couldn't make it. I'm doing great. I am a freelance science writer. I've been doing it for about three and a half years now. I have a bachelor's degree in biology pre-med. Decided last minute after taking the MCAT and all that it really wasn't for me. So, and I think Gabe actually has a similar story in that. For whatever reason, even after getting the acceptance letters, it just didn't seem like that was the route for me. Did a bunch of different odd jobs and landed on writing and Instagram too. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now currently.
That's awesome. So you applied for med school, but you decided not to go at the end of the day.
I did. Yes. Not only that, but I got into like my dream school as well, which was Penn. Yeah, I got in there and I don't know why, but after talking to some family friends that were in the medical field, my best friend's dad's a medical doctor. He said, whatever you do anything else. You do not want to deal with the headaches of being a medical doctor. So, I took it all to heart and I just went a totally different route, more on the research side of things. And then that got me into the writing. But I couldn't be happier with the way I went with it because I'm having a blast.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard a lot of complaints about physician burnout and just kind of a hopelessness that's permeating the community these days, which is really unfortunate because we need physicians to be kind of at the top of their game to make sure that we're healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing I heard from everybody was that insurance companies was the biggest issue. It was the biggest headache, just walking on eggshells with everything. And it just seemed like all the doctors I spoke to, it was like being a doctor became secondary to all the other headaches they had to worry about.
Right.
So I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to do this.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've spent the past 4 years in Europe, and the system here is so different, especially in Spain and Italy. It's all public healthcare, so they don't even deal with insurance. They don't deal with any of that. And they kind of always make fun of me because they're always like, oh, you guys have that private healthcare system. What is that? They just don't understand it. It's a different world over here. So I don't know. Maybe you would enjoy being a doctor over here. Look into it.
Probably. I mean, U.S. healthcare is like not the best right now.
I think they're it needs improvement. There's some improvement to be made in the whole system, healthcare, drugs, everything. We have some improvement to make.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more with that.
What about you, Gabe?
Yeah, so I am a paleontologist. You can find me on Instagram as @paleoparadox. Dan and I have a very similar origin story. I got my undergraduate degree in biology pre-med. I graduated, I took my MCATs too, and right after that I was like, F this, I'm not doing this. I enjoyed science. I obviously, like, going through my undergrad and taking classes was fantastic. But I just wasn't happy with the idea of being a doctor. I enjoy storytelling and research so much more. So I kind of left that behind, and then I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do yet. So I instead started volunteering at a natural history museum in Orange County, and doing that made me realize how much I want to be in museums. And so while I was there, the curator of the museum at the time was looking for grad students. So I applied with him to be a grad student at Cal State Fullerton. And so I got my master's degree in geology. But halfway through my master's degree, I actually applied for a job at a local museum called the Alf Museum of Paleontology. And so never expecting I'd get it because, they were looking for people with experience and all this stuff. I applied and I became the collections manager of the Alf Museum. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm the collections manager and I'm also the outreach coordinator here. So at the museum, it's my job to take care of our fossils. And on the side, I do science communication. I do all of our outreach events. And I really love science communication because Dan will tell you, we're really good friends. And half of our conversations, we became friends because of science communication. And I do a lot of stuff with paleontology, obviously. But I also do this little fun side project called Cosplay for Science. I'm one of the co-founders. And what we do is we use cosplay, pop culture to make people interested in science and get them to interact with scientists more frequently, more easily. So that's what I do as a science communicator.
That's awesome. That's really
super
cool.
Jealous. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist. So I used to, know all of the dinosaur species, as many kids I think of that age did. But so I'm glad you finally followed my dream.
It's funny because I loved paleontology as a kid too, but I never thought about being a paleontologist. It just wasn't on my radar. It was like,
Same.
You're going to be a doctor because of my parents. That's just the culture, and so I did it. And then when I decided to become a paleontologist, that was a conversation.
Yeah.
With my family. They're like, what do you mean you're not going to be a doctor?
I've been to the Alf Museum, and I have to say, it's awesome. It really is super interactive, super fun. It's a great place to go. So if you are in the area, I highly suggest you check it out. It's a great museum.
Yeah, I might be in LA actually in the next couple months. So I'll definitely contact you, Gabe, and maybe we can hit up the Alf Museum together.
Definitely.
That would be awesome.
We're a small museum, but if you come by, let me know. We'll take you in and see all the fossils and stuff.
Awesome.
We're really unique because we're actually the only accredited paleontology museum on a high school campus. So we teach high school students paleontology here at the museum, amongst the other programs at the school.
That's awesome.
That's really neat. Yeah. So do you spend any time in the field, Gabe, or is it all museum and science communication?
I do get opportunities to go in the field. During this past summer, I actually got to go to Peru and Mongolia to do some field work. And then we do a lot of work in Utah and nearby in Barstow in Southern California. So there's a lot of opportunities to do field work here. But my main duties are at the museum. I just get I get the chance to go out and help with the rest of the paleontologists here.
Do you have any cool fossils at home that you like to that you didn't give to the museum but you took home to show your friends?
No. We're very part of our thing at the museum is we try very hard and to teach ethics and stuff like that. In California, it's really hard to take your own fossils home. We have a lot of laws about owning vertebrate fossils. Any fossils I have at home are usually invertebrate fossils or shark teeth that I've purchased somewhere else. So I don't have a lot of those on my own. But, I don't really need to because I live right near the museum. Whenever people come over, I'm like, hey, do you want to go see the stuff we have? I know a guy who can let us into the back.
Like Night at the Museum.
Yeah, exactly. That Dan and Michelle got to do that.
That's awesome.
Midnight tour. Oh man.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys, how did you guys get together and how did you begin this sort of movement, communication movement and Instagram and all that? What started all this?
That was all Dan.
So basically, it was about a year into my science writing offline, and I decided why not try to start my own Instagram page online where I would give little excerpts of my articles. I started doing it that way for a few months, and then I decided, why not throw in some pop culture references? Because I love the two, almost equally. So I married the two together, and that combination really is what got my following started on there. And I was doing it for about 2.5 years, and I started seeing other, at the time we didn't really call each other anything, but science communicators out and about. And I just thought one night, wouldn't it be cool if she knew him, or if they knew each other, if they got together, they might be able to collaborate on something cool. So it turns out it was Michelle and Mark the science guy. We were on a comment thread on some post. I can't even remember what it was, but somebody mentioned, why not create a logo to unite us together, just like the SciComm. So I made the logo and all. It was very it's leaps and bounds now, better than it was, but it was like the newly accepted schematic of carbon that I drew up. I was like, and I was like, wait, if the whole purpose of this logo is to unite us, why not just make a page? So I stamped on the logo and I said, hey guys, everybody that knows anybody that is interested in science communication, send them a link, invite them here, and we basically haven't looked back since.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of trying to get in on that.
Did you see like a lacking in the field? Is that what kind of brought the idea to you, or what?
It was not that there was a lack, but it was more comments that I would get on my page, kind of like what we take for granted, what we think is common knowledge really is not common knowledge. And I started seeing it a lot, and I thought, however people are being taught right now, for a lot of these people, it's not working. So let's make it more palatable, more accessible, more fun. Above all else, it has to be fun. It has to be relatable. And that's what, at first, I would just go around and pick certain science communicators. And now it's based on if they're interested, they can come to us, they email us, send us a DM, and we'll accept them. The wait's really long right now, but there's no vetting process or anything like that. The only requirement, you don't need a PhD, you don't need a master's, you can be a student. All you need is the will and desire to communicate the sciences in an effective way. And that's basically it.
And work together with other people. The big thing in the science community is collaborations. And so you can see a lot of posts lately have been amazing collaborations. Like right now, there's one called EcoChem with Becky and Chem with Kellen. And what they're doing is they're talking about ecology and biology. That's Becky's specialty, and then Kellen will come in and talk about the chemistry behind it. So right now they just did a post about the chemistry of butterfly wings. It's
I
really
saw
cool
that post.
Isn't it fantastic?
It was awesome. It was really cool.
It's all these interdisciplinary scientists coming together and making connections with other things for people to see that science, or STEM, is just like this whole overarching thing where we have our own little niche in it, but we all talk and connect to each other. And so that was, I think, the grand vision behind when Dan created it, was making sure that all these science communicators who are doing all these awesome things separately come together and like just watch what happens when a bunch of really excited people who love to talk about science have a chance and a place to collaborate. And it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I think there's a shift from the past where kind of it was keep your project and data secret, right? And kind of you wanted to come out on top, right? And be the first one to this. And I think there's a shift, within the past 5-10 years of sharing data, working together, collaborating, like you said. And I think that's awesome. And it's nice to be a part of the movement.
I'm very happy to be.
And Connor, we will get your intro up very quickly.
It's okay. I'm very busy right now. So in terms of anything else you would need from me, it would be quite a few days before I could get that together.
Okay. Well, I did read your intro and it's all perfect. So as long as you don't have any changes you can think of, it's good to go on my end.
I don't remember what I submitted, but yeah, it should be fine. It's been a while.
We'll get it together.
That's right. But yeah, it's super exciting to see everything happening these days. I think it's only been a few years since I've really been conscious to the space, but since I've been watching, I've seen this massive growth around your page as like the central hub or Nexus, right? You guys are affiliated with the Nexus YouTube channel.
They're the same thing. Nexus is just our YouTube channel.
Right.
Nexus.
Yeah, that was kind of like my little baby project within the Sci community, because my background, I had a lot of background in videography and YouTube and graphic design and stuff, and there were all these people who were wanting to make these great videos and stuff like that, and there was no place to really put them on the Instagram yet. So I was like, hey Dan, what if we create a place where everybody can put their videos, and we can create like this really cool way people can mentor the next generation of video science communicators and YouTubers. And so we're like, yeah, let's do it. We're going to call it the TheSciCommunity. I was like, wait, what if we give it a really cool name that can stand out? And I was like, what if we call it Nexus, the meeting point between art, science, and science communication? And so that's how Nexus was born. And so now we've got, 4 shows, Dan? 5?
Yeah, so we have completed runs of Evening Phenology with Kayleen Bryson, and also completed Kayleen Bryson's other show, Because I Don't Think the Woman Sleeps, with Patrick Kelly, called Pedagogy Hypothesis. They're both done. We currently have Fresh Press Science with Susanna L. Harris, and Sidewalk Science with Alex Martin, the Scalix of Science. And we're currently working on another one. Hopefully news on that by the end of the month. Susanna's working closely with that other project. Really exciting things.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
There's a lot going on back there.
Yeah, I don't think Susanna sleeps either. Just
I don't think Michelle sleeps either. I've seen her.
Yeah.
She's so energetic. Yeah.
Yeah, she's always like that.
She's hilarious. Yeah.
And just for the listeners, you don't have to like remember all of these Instagram handles, Twitter handles. We're gonna toss all these in the show notes, and Dan and Gabe, we're gonna just make sure we have all the right links. So
sweet.
Yeah, I had a question for you guys. So one of the biggest things that I've noticed in science community is that most people get their information based on a Facebook article that they read that was based on one study done in 3 mice with, statistics that weren't really strong enough. But the article kind of shifts it, and they change it, and they say this equals this, and people freak out about this. How can we fix this movement of kind of, I don't want to, I guess I can call it, glorification of poor studies, or, kind of like, there's a miscommunication, from the study. When it gets to the public, it's changed so many times, and I see this on Facebook most. How can we fix this? Do you guys see the same issue? Is it just me, or have you guys noticed?
Definitely in paleontology, we have that same issue. You see a lot of these articles come out where they'll say like the biggest dinosaur ever found, or like new dinosaur changes the history of evolution.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you read the actual article, it's not that. It's a lot of sensationalism, and coming from a little bit of the marketing side of things, it's understandable where they want to do that, where they need the readers, right? If you don't get those clicks or readers, then what's the point of them even doing it? So I can understand where that comes from, but the science is obviously the most important thing, and that's communicated properly. One of the cool things I see now, at least in my field, is there's a lot of paleontologists who are going into science journalism. They've got their degrees, they've done the research, they understand everything about it, right? The ins and outs of research and the science. But then they're taking all that knowledge and going out and rewriting all this research for the general public. And so now it's the science article brought to you by actual scientists. And then they're doing things like making workshops for journalists who want to be science journalists. And they're showing them the way to understand the scientific method, showing them proper way to write, ask the right questions. And so it's really great seeing that. Like a fantastic example is Brian Switek. He writes for the Smithsonian, I believe, right now. He used to do Nat Geo too, and a bunch of other cool stuff. He himself is not a paleontologist. He does work in paleontology, but he is a science journalist. He does amazing articles because he works very hard to ensure that he reads it. He talks with the actual authors of the papers to make sure that whatever he's communicating across is what is actually the science. And he doesn't do like these big sensational titles. He tries to create the most succinct actual titles that describe the research most accurately. And so it's great seeing that. And I think that's one of the best ways we can change it, is having the actual scientists and communicators becoming the people providing this to the general public. We're not having to rely on journalists outside of the field. Not saying that there aren't good journalists out there. There are good journalists who do the work, but for the most part, a lot of people are stuck behind this. We need an audience. We need to get people to read our stuff. And so I think as a culture, needs to be a culture shift in 2 ways. People need to stop thinking about only getting an audience, and then also realizing that there needs to be some training in science journalism.
It's all competing for attention spans, and that can be difficult, right?
Oh yeah, we all know
our attention spans are all getting shorter all the time, it seems like. So I like the strategy that Dan brought up about twisting in pop culture references. So I saw that Cosplay from Science account, and you were dressed as Dr. Grant from Jurassic Park, right? Which
oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Very quickly, I think people are going to pay attention. How was that? Did you go to Comic-Cons or anything like that?
Yeah. So the Cosplay for Science initiative was started by me and 3 other paleontologists, Michelle Barboza Ramirez, Brittany Stoneberg, and Isaac Magallanes. Both Brittany and Michelle are also SciCommunity members as well. And all 4 of us are avid science communicators. We're all paleontologists with research behind our belt, but we love science communication. And so we always have, like what Dan does is we've always tried to combine pop culture with what we're saying to make things relatable and people can see it. And because we're paleontologists, we're lucky. We have Jurassic Park, you know, as like one of the big science, nerdy sci-fi movies out there that people can really relate with. And so, you know, we always talk about Jurassic Park. We've done it so many times. But what happened
Sorry, Dan, I hear some crazy noises coming from you.
Right back.
Seems to be a crisis.
I know.
Hospital?
Stupid dogs.
Just give him some steak to eat.
Oh God. It might have been ice cream. No, not an ice cream truck. Something. God, a squirrel probably. Squirrel started that whole domino effect of just nonsense.
That's hilarious.
Going back to the whole red flags in literature and all, with the whole correlation does not equal causation, we are starting to see a lot of posts by not just our members, but other science communicators that haven't yet joined us, that they want to make it clear to the public that the two are not one and the same, that you might read something, don't take it at face value, do more research, do the due diligence to make sure that what you are reading is correct. Look at the people writing it. Do they have any bias? What are they gaining from it? And like Gabe said, Fresh Press Science did this incredibly. Their first few episodes, they would read an article and they would have the guest on air to explain exactly what they meant in said article.
That's
so
perfect.
I think absolutely crucial, and you're starting to see that more and more.
Yeah, and that's the gold standard, and that's kind of what me and Connor, that's why we got started. You know, we saw the miscommunication, and I know I see it every day just with friends or people that are not in the science field. They're like, "Whoa, did you see this? That if you use your phone, you're gonna get brain cancer." And I'm like, well, actually, I studied neuroscience. It doesn't really work that way. Maybe. But it's very interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of improvement to be made as well.
It's funny you bring up correlation versus causation too, Dan, because we actually have that in our notes for the show here.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about that.
I had shared that with you, but
no.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably like the central. It's probably the first place people go wrong, right? Is not understanding the difference between correlation versus causation. So I think from I've seen in the media lately, there's been a lot of talk about whether fat is good for you, whether fat is bad for you, whether a vegan diet versus a carnivore diet. These are complete polar opposite diets. And yet, like, there's 2 groups of people on either side saying my diet is the healthiest thing. And one of them is for sure wrong. It's likely that both are wrong. But they both somehow pull literature out of somewhere to validate their claims, right? And a lot of these things in a correlative sense, with humans, they're all correlative. Human studies is what I should be saying. They're not necessarily causative. So, for example, a vegan diet, for a while we thought a vegetarian-only diet was the healthiest thing. And so healthy-minded people were likely to get on that diet and then be tracked by studies. They're also exercising probably. They're also doing a lot of they're getting proper sleep, which they know is good. They're very health conscious. So it makes things a lot more difficult and muddies the waters, right? What are some of the correlation versus causation difficulties or mix-ups that you have seen in your fields or in your lives?
Do you want to take that first, Gabe?
That's a good question.
I do my best to make sure that I do everything right, but I don't do field work. I haven't done it since a year out of college, so I have to think about that one.
That's fair.
I'm trying to figure out how that I can pick a specific thing in paleontology, because
it's even harder in paleontology, I feel like, because you're millions of years removed from the actual.
There's a lot.
It's a lot of
there's a lot of things where it's like, like I said earlier, it's like when they find like a new fossil and they say it completely rewrites the story of evolution of this thing, or like when we say like we find, like if you find a fossil and says it rewrites the whole history of humans, and I'm like, it's not quite true. What we're looking at is a whole side branch of humans that branched off a long time ago that really had nothing really to do with us. all it is we're learning more about how branching human evolution is. It's not rewriting our history. We're seeing the bigger picture. But a lot of people will see these things and they're like, hey, did you know? Or like, oh, I know. There was one couple years ago where we learned that the traditional groupings of dinosaurs, the ornithischians versus the saurischians, where you have the bird hip and lizard hip dinosaurs, that's the way we've always kind of seen things at this branch. And we learned, there was a study that came out a while ago that's like, oh no, that's all wrong. And then they rearranged the whole thing, and everybody just went crazy about like, what we know about dinosaurs is all wrong and blah, blah, blah. And then we're like, no. What we don't, it's not all wrong. All it is we're getting a bigger picture. And even then it's not 100% certain. But people were always taking these kind of things as 100% fact, when in paleontology, a lot of what we're doing is hypotheses and just getting the best thing we can get out of it, because our evidence is they're dead, right? We can't go into them. So we're just doing the best we can with what we have. And so there's no 100%, and everybody takes paleontology as like 100% whenever something else comes out.
Yeah, I think that's
because it's so tangible. Maybe, I don't know.
It's
like,
not tangible.
Well, a fossil is tangible though. You can,
yeah, the fossil itself is tangible, but like, you know, I study marine mammals from like 15 million years ago, and I wrote one of my first publications was talking about how this is how we think they change from a baby to an adult. They lose these set of teeth, and then they lose all their teeth completely. But I'm building this picture based on a few fossils, right? And who knows what's in between them, or how much time really was between all of these different animals. So I'm trying to build this story of how animals change over time from small windows into their history. Yeah. And I'm just doing the best I can and presenting this idea, and it's with some plausibility because I have this much evidence, but I can never say this is 100% how it is, because I don't have every single piece of time and every single animal that I can look at to say like, this is exactly how animals changed as they got older.
It sounds like a tough job. You have like a fossil and you have to figure out everything else, you have one piece, you only have one piece to the puzzle.
Yep. That's paleo for you, but I love it.
I have a question though. So how plausible is Jurassic, one of my favorite series of movies? Like, how plausible is that?
We love talking about that one. It's not really that plausible. Mostly just because, I mean, Dan will back me up. Like DNA degrades so fast. I mean, it's such an unstable molecule. Whenever something dies, I mean, even while we're alive, our DNA is starting to degrade, right? So when we die, there's nothing to say it's preserved. So we have no solid DNA of anything almost more than 1 million years old, I think. We have proteins and stuff, but there's no way to get DNA and replicate. And also in Jurassic Park, for some reason, they decided to use frogs to fill in the gaps.
I was confused about that too. I was like, what? What about the woolly mammoth? How is that plausible? You probably know more than I do about it.
There's a lot of things that can go wrong with that. First of all, we don't know the entire gestation period of a mammoth. I mean, people are like, well, what if we put it in an elephant? And
that's the main thing, right? We just fill in the gaps within.
Yeah, but those animals aren't even that. They diverged a long time ago too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that it just aren't that plausible right now with it. And there's a whole ethical thing. Like, do we really want to bring back mammoths? There's nowhere for them to live now.
Yeah, well, put them in Russia.
Siberia, yeah. On that topic, any other myths you want to dispel while we're at it? Just knocking them down right now.
You just ruined my dreams from the woolly mammoth. I wanted that so bad.
Oh, I wish. Do you know how much I wish these animals were still around? It would make my research so much easier, like I just said.
Yeah, but you can't be like Chris Pratt and go to the island. That's not a good idea.
Oh my god, no. Chris Pratt, why?
Yeah, why him? I don't know, dude.
There's a lot of things.
Don't be about running in high heels.
Hopefully he's not listening to this now and we're just destroying him.
I like Chris Pratt. I just didn't like that movie.
Well, it was the alien like combo dinosaur. I wasn't down with that. It got too far fetched.
Yeah,
because I watched it because I appreciate the
Wasn't
species.
it a change in directors? I think that was.
I don't remember. I just remember rolling my eyes a lot during that
movie. Yeah.
And it's not just because I'm a paleontologist. I just thought it was a bad movie too.
Yeah, it wasn't very well made. Anyway, getting back on topic. Let's see. What were we talking?
Yeah, any other myths? If you don't have
Yeah.
any other myths you want to bring down for people. One thing I will say is a lot of people think that pterosaurs are actually dinosaurs, but they weren't, right?
No,
Those are
they're a whole
mammals.
separate group of reptile. They're all grouped together in this group of animals called Archosauria. So that includes the crocodilians, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs, but they're not a dinosaur themselves. So yeah. Yeah, that's why when we're at my museum, we say it's the age of reptiles, not the age of dinosaurs.
Mhm.
Like, there's a lot of different animals that were existing at that time. Also, we don't all wear flannel all the time or hiking boots.
It looks like you're wearing flannel right now.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
Wait,
this
never
is
mind.
causation versus correlation, or what?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, I'm gonna turn my camera off.
We're not publishing the video. Don't worry about that.
Don't
We're not that advanced yet. That's the next step for the
But he is
podcast,
wearing flannel, just for the record.
Yes, I can confirm this. That's a good microcosm of correlation versus causation.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you wearing flannel because you're a paleontologist, or?
I'm wearing flannel because it's California fall, and I think I look cute in this shirt.
It looks
Sure,
great.
yeah.
You look amazing, so don't worry
Thank
about that. I had a question for y'all. How do you think technology will change how science is done? And we all can see this. Technology is just changing so fast. Every year there's a new iPhone, new data science analysis. Everything is going so fast. How will this affect your fields and also the science communication field?
I think that things are going to start moving very much toward phones for education. You can see it now. The content online overall, not just on the SciCommunity, but science communicators in general online, they're experts in their fields. They're giving out quality information, and they're learning a lot more than they would in a structured class. For some people, some people it does work to have that structure, but a lot of people are noticing that they are learning a ton online. And I just think with online classes now, most universities offer them in some format, maybe small amounts. Others do it for half the coursework. I've seen some students do it full time, just online constantly. I think we're going to start seeing more and more people learning off of their phones. And I really think it's just going to get more to that point to not make brick and mortar universities obsolete, but less important that they are now, maybe. But I definitely think we're going to see more learning online for sure.
Yeah, but it's coupled though with like a loss of capacity to follow one thing and to stay focused on one thing. I see our generation is losing the capacity. They lose interest, like Connor said earlier. We have very short attention span, and you can see that. So it's kind of, I think we will all become even more specialized than we are now, and just continue that route. Because it's hard to, the one thing that I didn't like about university was that you're taking classes that aren't even for you. You're like, I have to take this physics class. Well, I mean, I actually liked physics. I'm trying to think of another class that I didn't like. But, you have to take classes that you don't need just to get the credits.
I think for me, though, I would say having all this technology and stuff was really fantastic because I love learning all the time. And so having technology for research and education just helps with the dissemination of information. It makes it so much easier to have access to so many things and become a much more interdisciplinary scientist and have these connections with your one field. Like here at the Alf Museum, we use technology all the time in our exhibits. So I do this one thing where we use augmented reality to overlay translations of our signs so that we can create a much more inclusive museum experience. So like say you come to the museum and Spanish is your first language. So you download an app and then you can scan our exhibits and it'll change all the text into Spanish.
That's awesome.
So it's really cool for, again, dissemination of information. With technology, on the SciCommunity, the more stuff we have to have different avenues of talking, the more I'm learning about things. Like I just learned a lot about butterfly wings today from Kellen and Becky. Yes, the other day I learned something from Sarah or Science Bay, and she taught us about how to use pipettes properly. And then even like in just general education with technology, we do a lot of stuff in the paleontology field for creating K through 12 lesson plans using our actual fossils. We use 3D scanning, CT scanning, and immediately we can publish those online. And so any teacher or scientist throughout the world can download those specimens for their own research or for their classrooms, 3D print them, And before, where you had to go fly to all the way across the world to China to see the skull of this one ancient bird, today I can go online and download it and 3D print it in our lab and have an exact replica to do research or education with. And so I think in terms of learning and technology, or even just in universities or whatever, all this technology is just going to make it that much easier to learn and be more interdisciplinary and intersectional with everything we're doing. I mean, yeah, definitely we're going to have shorter attention spans, but that's just because there's so much to learn.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's kind of like an overload of information. It's hard to, I think also you can fact check things a lot faster.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's
Whenever I get in arguments with my friends, I have Google open right away.
Let's just see what Google says. So, like, F you.
I'm still getting those moments where it's like, oh, who is that guy in that movie? And then it's like, oh, wait, I can just check it right now.
Yeah, exactly. And then it becomes an ego test to, like, who was right, right?
Yeah. What I would like people to start doing is, instead of just saying, like, oh, I've got Google, when they're, like, in science arguments, like, oh, I'm going to Google Scholar this. That way they can have
there
actual
you go.
citations.
I'm going to do a systematic review on this. Yeah.
We can hope one day, yeah.
But
I do want to shout out Skype A
shout.
Scientist too, while we're talking about tech and evolving the science communication efforts. So I haven't actually signed up for them yet, but it's on my to-do list. I'm for sure doing it. I was wondering if any of you had done that. Skype A Scientist is basically a nonprofit that, what it sounds like, they let classrooms and teachers and students Skype scientists, they Skype in, and then the students can ask them questions and all of that kind of in a real-time setting. So I've done some like physical school visits. I'm going to do some more, but I'm definitely really excited for that. So I don't know if any of you had been involved.
We do that at my museum, but we do Skype in the classroom, which is run through a whole different program, but it's very similar. So we do a lot of that here at the museum, where I go into classrooms. I've done international ones a lot. But yeah, we do something very similar where we can go into classrooms, because we're a small museum. We don't have a lot of people or funds to go out and do classroom visits. So by using this, I can go to whatever classroom. I mean, I've even done one in India and the Philippines.
That's
talking
awesome.
about paleontology, so it's fantastic.
That's really cool. Well, the fossils aren't going anywhere either, so that's it's definitely.
They might wake up and run away when you're gone. Yeah.
And I do know that Patrick Kelly of Pedagogy Hypothesis, he's a K-8 teacher. He was looking into joining the Skype A Scientist initiative, but I'm not sure exactly where he is on that. But he would be that would be a seamless thing for him, because I can only imagine how awesome it must be to be a student of his, because his teaching approach is so much fun, and I know he would be a total rock star on there. But I'm not sure exactly where he is in that process yet.
Yeah, I know they have a lot of people signed up, which is a good thing. Good problem to have.
Yeah, I need to look into that, Connor. I hadn't.
Yeah, the founder did podcast with the Hello PhD, actually. So they're they're close to us here in North Carolina. Actually,
That's
it's a
awesome.
North Carolina-based podcast. So, anyways,
Really?
we'll toss that link in the show notes as well for anyone interested. I see you highlighting this one question though, Julian, and I think it's definitely worth asking. We're talking a lot about how science communication is evolving, how we're getting better at it, how more people are joining the effort, but you posed a good question, which was, is scicomm enough? Is science communication enough to actually change behavior? So people have known for decades that cigarettes are really bad for you. We have a warning on a cigarette box label, but people still smoke. We still have obesity that's mostly preventable. Now science is coming out saying the microbiome is involved, but it's pretty clear that it's a calories in and calories out at the end of the day. But we still have these chronic ailments. We still have people dying of lung cancer from smoking too much. So where's that disconnect between information and actionable behavior changes? How do we bridge that gap?
There's a lot of people who talk about trust in scientists. So as much as we try to talk about our science and get it out there, there's still a lot of people who will just trust what scientists say, because we're in our ivory tower, as it always is said. Like, we're we sound too smart. We make them feel stupid, or even there's just a complete distrust in the scientific method because of false information, cultural disconnect there, religious disconnect. There's a lot of things as to why people, even if the information is provided to them in the most easy to understand manner, right in their face, they may take it and just be like, I don't trust that person. And so even with all the science communication, there's a lot of people out there who'll just be like, nah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, What? Sorry, Dan. I just wanted to add some. I'm working now in a very good pharmacological research lab, and all these people are excellent, is very smart, and there's a large percentage of them that go outside and smoke a cigarette at least 2 or 3 times. And I'm so confused. I'm like, but you're studying brain tumors and in this specific thing, but you don't know that cigarettes are bad for you. I'm like, this is crazy to me.
Yeah, that's tough. I think that's kind of like a wrestling with the brain. It's like you know what's good for you, what's not for you, but at the end of the day, it's like you're hooked on this nicotine, and then it's just like, are you gonna listen? What part of your brain are you gonna listen to?
Yeah, exactly.
Reason, or are you gonna listen to like the innate need for that? That's tough.
It's just confusing to me. I also see a lot of, obese doctors is another example. Like, you're a cardiologist and you're morbidly obese. You're like, I don't know. It's just, for me, it's something that, I'm with you on Connor. I don't understand where the disconnect is. I'm confused, honestly, personally.
I think it's just us being human.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think it is human, and I think you just have to keep pushing and prodding and trying to build those gaps to try to just turn that switch on in these people. Just keep at it different ways. Yeah. Keep going. If you don't get if the response isn't too good the first time around, just hit it a different way. Try to come at it a different way. Use reason. Use whatever you can. If numbers aren't working, use anecdotes. Use something that is going to just keep at it. But you can't stop, because even if you give 100% effort, there's still going to be people, like Gabe said, they're just like, nope, I don't believe it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to issues with free will, right? I mean, there's a whole debate of whether we have free will or not, or are we a slave to our microbiome and things like that. But I don't know. It's a very interesting topic, and figure out, why these people know the facts, but they're not acting. What's going on here?
Yeah. I mean, part of the Sci community, the thing was to, again, build trust, to show people that we're not, we're not outside of human emotion or whatever, we're not a group outside of human. We're just regular people who happen to like science. And as people see us as regular people, hopefully they'll be more willing to listen to us and take what we say at face value, and kind of trust that what we're saying is fact. We're not lying to, or there shouldn't be any reason for you to not believe us. And hopefully that's one way. I mean, again, that's just people who have distrust in scientists. There's all, like you just said, there's the people who know that smoking's bad, but they're gonna go out and light one anyway. I know I don't need that second donut, but oh man, that tasted so good.
There's also like the kind of intangible effects of happiness, and we don't really know how that works yet, right? So it's possible that second donut is actually worth it in the long term, because it makes you feel super great, enough, to carry you through that day that was super stressful. I doubt it, but we do have to keep that in mind, because I think a lot of people do self-medicate. And then Julian, you said there's cardiologists who is super fat. Well, we just talked about physician burnout. Doctors are really stressed too, and maybe that's their way of dealing with that. So
that's a good point. Yeah, and that's another thing. I think mental health is something that should definitely have more traffic, something that a lot of people don't talk about. You might be smart and educated in the topic, but not be happy, and need to self-medicate. I think that's a good idea.
We're human. We do what we need to survive.
Exactly.
That day, that hour, whatever.
And I just wanted to quick shout out Susanna L. Harris again. PH Depression is incredible at shining light and breaking down the stigma attached to mental illness. And every day I look at that and I just get inspiration, and it furthers the view that we are just people at the end of the day, regardless of where we are scholastically. We are just people. We have insecurities, we have emotions, and just to see that as an outlet for people, it's incredible. And I think they're doing a great job on that end.
That's awesome. Really I need to check that out. Is PH Depression?
Yeah. PH_depression.
Yeah, I think speaking about depression, I think everybody goes through depression. I strongly believe that.
I have major depressive disorder. Mine's going to stay with me for my whole life.
Yeah, but I guess it comes and goes. I don't know.
I take medication every day to keep me on a level mood, basically. If I don't take it, I can be manic, depressive, really bad. I can lose energy. I've had suicidal thoughts in the past. I mean, that's the reason I was diagnosed in the first place.
Yeah.
So I know how hard it can be. It's even, it's not saying that people who aren't it's not a biological thing, it's completely mental or whatever. Whoever has it, it sucks. No matter if you have it forever or for a week, we shouldn't make light of any of it because it sucks no matter what. And the fact that Susanna is out there being super open about it and getting people to realize, oh, I can talk about it, I don't have to hide it or whatever. The more we do that, the more, I think, more readily talkable and treatable for people in the long run, because they don't have to be in their PhD programs just like hiding it and suffering in the dark.
Yeah, and I think definitely you make a good point. You know, a lot of people, how many people go undiagnosed, right? And don't reach out and ask for help. And I think that's a huge thing. I think if you are suffering from something, you know, look for help, try to talk to somebody, go to a doctor, you know, be proactive about it. But I'm sure it can be very difficult. I too have been depressed. I mean, I've been depressed in long periods of my life, something I think nobody does in their life.
No, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 21.
How did you finally go to the doctor and say, hey, something's up? You don't have to speak on it if you don't want to. But.
No, I basically I had a very, very bad night. Let's just put it at that. And I was forced to be diagnosed from there. It was really bad. It should not have ever gone that way. But at the time, I was in my undergrad as a pre-med. I was like, I cannot have time. I don't have time to be going to the doctor or doing this. I need to be in my class. I need to be doing all this stuff. And then also, you know, I was like, that was the culture. I didn't have to, or I was also like, oh man, am I crazy or whatever? But that was 21-year-old Gabe. Now it's like, I'm not feeling good. I'm taking a mental day.
Yeah, exactly. It's important to do that, you know. One thing I wanted to say that you said earlier was, you know, people call it a mental thing, but I think people forget that even mental things have a biological substrate behind them, you know?
Yeah.
So it's always connected, you know, the mental is always connected to the biological and vice versa. Your biology, meditation, and vice versa. You know, your biology can change your mental state.
Yeah. Mine's, I think, biological. I don't know. It never goes away. So.
I think so too, because whenever I hear the argument, oh, it's all in your head, I have depression myself. Whenever somebody says it's all in my head, I say, you're absolutely right. It is in my head.
It's in my brain.
It's taking way more than it should. So I take this to make sure it's inhibited. It's all going on in my head. You're absolutely right. But even if it is mental, people, they decide to attack that like it's a weakness when people are saying, oh, I'm depressed or I'm suffering from this. And if the answer is something like, oh, it's all in your head, don't worry about it. That's basically them saying, oh, this is something that to me is tangible. You might not be able to see it, but this is something that's affecting me just because it's not a broken limb or anything like that. It is something going on internally, no matter what. So I totally agree that, it's in your head for sure.
It's the same thing like a broken limb, exactly what you're saying. There's part of your body that's not working correctly, and that's it.
So we kind of have been touching on this the whole time, but a question we love to ask people is, how has science changed your life, if at all? Now, Dan, your understanding of how the brain works lets you answer people's kind of their sides,
ignorant
like
views. Yeah.
And how are there any other ways in which you use science to like understand your life and your experience?
It's actually it's what I base most. Well, I haven't done anything on my page in forever now, but I've been doing my own articles and focusing on making the SciCommunity okay and all. But I am always open to the fact that science is going on around us 24/7, no matter what. So if I'm taking the time, I'm watching like a sporting event, I'm going to think about, oh, how can I relate that to kinesiology or pathophysiology, anything like that. But it never turns off. It's me. That's what the goal is really for those that say, oh, I don't like science. If I ever hear I don't like science, that's just not possible, because just by you waking up in the morning, by you breathing, you pretty much are governed by science at all times. And I just want to try to shine a spotlight on people thinking that science isn't for them, because it really is. No matter what interest you have, I feel you can somehow correlate it to science. And I think that could be like the biggest thing to just help bridge the gap, is if somebody is set on this one sports team and it's like their life, be like, then connect science to that in some way. They're going to relate the two. And every time they think about their favorite basketball team, they'll think about kinesiology in the meantime. So, yeah, that's the way I look at it. Science is everywhere.
It's true, though. I mean, that's cosplay for science. That's That's PhD fashionista who talks about her fashion and science. Beata Science Art, who went to a fashion show because of her science dresses prints that she made.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
There's so many ways that like science has changed people's lives, like because we realize it's a part of us. As a paleontologist, you see deep time, you realize how much time has passed and how small a moment of time we are here on Earth, and you just kind of remember to not take that for granted. For me, at least, I remember that like I have this one moment to do whatever I want to do, and I could either spend it being on my couch and not doing anything, or I could do it trying to be a better science communicator and make the world better, stuff like that. So it's definitely being a scientist or a paleontologist on my half. It's definitely changed it. It also helped me to find a community for sure. Because before I really never really knew where I sat anywhere at the lunch tables. But now it's because of being scientists and meeting all these people and having this love for understanding the universe around us. There are other people who want to do that. I found a place where I can sit and talk about those kind of things with people. So science has definitely changed my life for the better on the personal side of things, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are you most excited about these days for SciComm and science? What do you think? What are you most excited about?
I'm really excited for the collaborations that are in the works right now. We are, as you see, for a while, we were nothing but intros, and they were supposed to be just that. But for a good amount of people, they thought it was just like a feature page. But we've been working on collaborating within our community. And when we say community, we mean it in every sense of the word. Like, if we don't talk to everybody all at once, some of us are talking to each other constantly. Gabe and I were texting this morning. Michelle and I text every day. We Skype. We're in constant communication with each other. We're genuine friends. And right now we're focused on collaborations. The first main one that came out was the EcoChem with Kellen and Becky. And also they just brought on Cheryl, who is a botanist, and she's also does amazing graphic aid work. Really trying to find a common interest, and it's taking time. I think it took Becky and Kellen a good 2.5 months to get this together. So we just let everyone know, just focus on giving the best science communication you can together. Don't worry about how long it takes. Focus on making it the best it can possibly be. And in the coming months, you'll start seeing more and more of these collaborative series coming out. Science Bay on Tuesdays, she'll do Teacher Tuesday. She did the first one solo. She's going to start introducing Susanna L. Harris, and also Courtney, that girl at NASA. She'll be collaborating with her as well. So that's the big thing we're fostering right now, is just collaboration, friendship. We want everybody to know that wants to join the Sci community to know that it's not just a one-time thing. You're not just being featured. Thanks for the followers. See you later. It's really, it is a family in every sense. It's a community. We're all constantly in communication with each other with this sole common goal to just make science communication stand out more, to educate as many people as possible in the sciences.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 2 of our members from Cosplay for Science, I met on the Sci community. It was Kellen is one of them, and then Dr. Matt Hutchins-Haney. He's a neuroscientist, and he loves nerdy stuff too. And we're like, hey, you want to join us and do cosplay? He's like, hell yeah. Now we got new members who want to cosplay for science with us because of the Sci community through collaborations.
When's the next cosplay event, Connor? We gotta go, man. We
down.
gotta get those League of Legends characters.
We're gonna be at Ontario Comic-Con here in California in June. But we're one of the things that we do, and we did it on the Sci community even, is we try to do these special theme months. Like when Solo was coming out, we tried to do Science of Star Wars Week, where we had people talk about different aspects of science and stuff. So there's so many ways people who love nerdy things can be involved with either the Sci community or Cosplay for Science or whatever, just doing on your own thing and connecting all those different worlds. Like I talk about the science in video games all the time. So those are fun things you could just do and find someone to collaborate with. Like I was trying to do a post, and then I asked Kellen about chemistry thing one time, and then next thing you know, we're talking about doing chemistry of food stuff or whatever, because we both love going out to eat, and we're like, well, you could talk about the chemistry and I could talk about the natural history of that food product or whatever. And so there's just a lot of really fun ways that we can do those kind of things. But if you're interested in Cosplay for Science, you can always dress up and send us a picture. We'll do it for you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll definitely do that, Connor. We'll have to find some some outfits to wear. And for Dan, yeah, we definitely want to hop in on and do some collaboration with you guys. I don't know exactly what we can do, but we'll come up with something and we'll get it going.
And that's another thing. We're creating a brainstorming space for members in that similar situation as you. Not sure exactly what you want to do, but we're going to allow a space to just bounce ideas off of each other until you get something that seems tangible and like you could roll with it. So it's totally fine if you don't have anything in mind to go with now. That's what we're here for, to give advice to give ideas for, criticisms, all constructive, of course. But yeah, it's what we're here for.
Yeah, we just figure out what we can bring to the table, for what kind of value we can.
Awesome.
Cool.
I love it.
Well, we know, Dan, Gabe, you have to leave. Sorry to cut you off, Connor.
I was about to say, Dan, Gabe, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun. Anything else you want to pass on to people who are going to listen to this?
I guess the last thing is, if you're interested in joining the SciCommunity, the criteria is the passion and desire to communicate the sciences and to be a part of a functional community where you will become friends with us. If you're interested, you can DM us on our personal page, our personal pages, or on the SciCommunity page, or you can send us an email through the link on the SciCommunity as well. But if you're interested in doing it, please feel free to message us.
Awesome. Yeah, they have a great page and all the beautiful things he was talking about. We'll definitely link all those in the show notes.
Yeah. Oh, I got to update then.
Yeah.
And finally, shout out to Beyond the Ivory Tower, Krishana. She took over the STEM squad this week. She did an outstanding job, and she helps us tremendously behind the scenes with the SciCommunity. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention her as well.
Well, thanks again for coming on, and hope you guys have a wonderful night.
Yeah, thanks.
You too, guys. Great. Thanks a lot.
And we'll stay in touch. Thanks, guys.
Later all.
Bye. Take care.